Today I'm joined by Jessie Salas from Foundation Training to talk about what training is actually for. Strength, health, corrective work and play, and why we can get trapped in one modality. And if you want help putting all of this into practice, join my Move Better School community at www.movebetter.club. So people often think they're getting fit when in reality they've accidentally started specializing in a particular sport or training modality. This is something we discussed kind of on the messages earlier. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of us are coming into, or at least in whatever age or demographic we're coming from into training. I know I found my way in with the desire to get fit, to get strong for the fire service. And not knowing any better, I ventured into bodybuilding. I followed the archetypes of what I understood, and it made me look really strong, but it did not make me strong for the fire ground. And so what I look at is that I think it's more about educating people on kind of like where the different, we'll say, archetypes of training fall in. Like there's bodybuilding, there's powerlifting, there's Olympic weightlifting. We can even categorize CrossFit as its own form, because I look at all those are all sports. And when we're talking about training for a specific goal, a specific purpose, that's where when you look at a strength coach, say, who's training an athlete, they're hitting multiple energy systems. They might be targeting strength versus power, which are two different forms of training, which I would say if you're doing traditional bodybuilding, you're breaking the body into pieces, focusing primarily on strength and aesthetic, how we look, as opposed to actual power production. And so I think it's more for a lot of people is recognizing first, what is the goal of training? What are we looking to accomplish? And I tell everyone, like, it's okay to just go, all I care about is looking good. Great. Well, then we want to make sure we're balancing the body in the process so we don't create imbalances in that training. But bodybuilding is for you. Is the goal powerlifting? Do we want to be brutally dump truck in the sand strong? Or do we want to be explosive and really be able to express moving weight really fast? Now, that's one's powerlifting, one's Olympic weightlifting. Do we want to be able to be fast, strong, athletic, agile? Now we're getting into working with a real strength coach and developing the different energy systems of the body, the performance components of the body. And so I think it's really a matter of knowing what your goals are, knowing none of those categories are wrong. If our true goal is, hey, let's be fit, let's be healthy, let's be active. I think some are better than others. But again, like my goals are different.
Yeah, I think everyone's got their preferences. For me, I've been doing this 20 odd years. I've dabbled in everything. I've tried it all, and I know what I prefer and I know what makes me feel better. And also having the coaching knowledge and the background, I know depending on what my goals are, I can change that program. But I think people do default to what they know and what they see, which tends to be bodybuilding, powerlifting, and more recently, a lot more people doing Olympic lifting. Do you think that's hindering progress, or because most people probably aren't necessarily aligning what their goals are with what they're doing in the gym? They're just doing the gym.
The gym, yeah,
and that's kind of, they hope that's taken them where they want it to.
Yeah, I think in a global view, I would say it's hindering progress depending on what the goal is. If our goal, like I look at it and I think one of the mistakes we make as coaches is going, I know the barbell really well. I know powerlifting really well. So I want to put everyone under the umbrella of a powerlifter because I'm going to make them brutally strong. And then we'll do a little bit of these other things. Or I'm an Olympic weightlifting coach, or I'm a kettlebell coach, or I'm a steel mace guy, or I'm a movement coach. They all have their purpose. It's recognizing like they're all ingredients into the recipe that the individual is looking to express. Like, Mark, you know what your goals are. You know what you want to accomplish. You've done this long enough to know exactly what ingredients you need. And maybe sometimes you go for outside perspective because we tend to favor our bias, but recognizing what ingredients do we need to accomplish the goal. And so I think what ends up happening is people will go down one path for a while and then realize that they may not be hitting the goal they want. So I go finding the right coach, finding the right mentor to guide them. And then maybe it is the sport of Olympic weightlifting. You don't ever have to compete, but I loved my years of Olympic weightlifting. I loved going in and having a rigid schedule, moving heavy weight, being aggressive, being explosive, failing, learning how to safely dump a barbell, how to navigate my body around a barbell. And it's still something I use heavily in my training, not nearly the load or the amount of weight anymore. But I think that what we can accomplish with Olympic weightlifting is a beautiful thing. But there needs to be the counterbalance to the patterns of Olympic weightlifting. It's this much of my program, but it's still a big part of it.
Yeah. I think that's the other thing. I think when people do it, they're chasing the numbers. It's extreme things. I really think that strongman training is probably one of the best things we can do. Pick something up,
Mm,
move it over there. Odd, awkward
yeah.
objects, just lift and carry. But again, as soon as people get into that style of training, a bit like powerlifting, it all becomes about numbers. So
Mm,
instead of just kind of picking up a reasonably sized sandbag, getting onto your shoulder, carrying it over there, moving things around, it's about how heavy can you go. And I think you lose some of the benefit of that essentially functional training because you
yeah.
then take it to an unnatural load. And I think
Yes.
that's for Olympic lifting specifically and powerlifting and all of training really, it becomes about the numbers. So you're chasing the weight
Mm,
and you forget and lose the movement side of it and the
yeah.
actual what you're getting out
Yeah.
of it.
We lose sight of the shoreline chasing the next wave. And I think it's natural. It is natural to start. You see progress. You want to keep chasing progress. You see aesthetic change. Like, I'll be real. I have a twin brother. People thought I was on steroids compared to my brother because I was Olympic lifting 5, 6 days a week while I was a fireman. It served the fire service extremely well, but I was addicted to chasing the numbers. And I agree with you completely. I think strongman training is phenomenal. Again, like, you want to work with someone who knows what they're doing because you're going to use your body in various capacities and fundamental human movements. You're picking objects up off the ground, you're carrying them a distance, you're putting things over your head. There's technique in all of it. But when we start pursuing load over good quality movements, over calculated rest time, so that if our goal is to move weight fast, we're allowing the explosive side of our energy system to recover, to basically, we explode a weight really fast, 3, 5, even a kettlebell 10 times. More than that, you're going into endurance at that point. But our ability to express weight fast, I look at it like an energy bar. It's here, we express it fast, it's down. And then over a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, it's going back up. And so if I'm truly chasing power production, I'm going to allow that bar to recharge. And for many people, it's like, what am I doing? I should be moving more weight. I should already be going. And I set a timer because if I don't, at a minute, I'm ready to go again. But I know I'm not going to express power fast. When it comes to load, and I'm going to give the example. I flew yesterday. I woke up at 4 in the morning in Atlanta, Georgia. I flew to California. So now it's 10:30 in the morning there, which means I woke up at 1 a.m. California time. I still went and trained last night, and it was foundation training. It was some of the Marinovich system, and that's all body weight. And then I went on a platform and I did some, a bar with 10-pound plates on each side. And I went through some hang snatches, Olympic weightlifting, if you will. But everything was light. And then I did some power clean into overhead push press, light. I expressed movement. I felt really good. I wanted to go heavier, but I went to myself, you feel good, but you're fatigued, you're tired. Don't chase the number. I had to fight the tendency. I had to fight my ego. There's people around me. There's an attractive girl in a corner. Maybe she's watching. We know she's not. She doesn't care what I'm doing. But, our minds run, and then we start chasing. And then that's where I see time and again injuries come out. Today, I woke up feeling amazing. And had I chased the number, I might have woken up all stiff today. So again, coaches knowing your goals and recognizing, unless your goal is to be an Olympic weightlifter, and even in those programs, there's percentages you're working off of. You're not chasing maxes on a regular basis. That's the quickest way to plateau, and it's the quickest way to burn out, get sick, or get injured.
Yeah. I think for the people pursuing those forms of training, that is kind of the trap they fall in because they haven't got professional coaches. They're not professional athletes. They don't realize that actually the amount of time they spend working on their top weights is a tiny, tiny fraction. Whereas most people that go in, or, every session they're trying to chase that number and add, the
Mm-hmm.
progressive overload. They're trying to add a couple of pounds each workout when they don't
Yeah.
realize that probably 10%, 20% of your training should be heavy, and the rest should
Yeah.
be kind of maintenance loads and technique
Yeah.
practice and
Yeah.
recovery. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
people get that wrong.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons why I really love. Now, again, I'll give the caveat. To a degree, I love Mark Ripito and Starting Strength, which is truly building raw strength, because they follow the linear progression where it is a micro climb, but where you're starting and what your work weights are nowhere near max. But you're finding a heavy number for a set of 5, and you're doing a squat, a bench, a deadlift, an overhead press, or a power clean. Pretty much that's it. And you do that consistently over time, and you're micro climbing 5 pounds, 10 pounds on the bar. each workout, but each workout it's A or B, and you're alternating. And so you're not going even remotely close to a 1 rep max. And I think that's fantastic. But again, if you fall into the umbrella of like my goal is maximum strength, then eventually you're going to start to get into those numbers. You're going to become brutally strong, but then you're going to get slow. Your VO2 max might not be there anymore. Your ability to perform work over time is going to go down potentially. It's again, it's like being a generalist. If your goal is to be generally healthy, fit, and strong human, no athlete would ever go do a powerlifting program or just a strongman program because there's too many other of their performance capacity that's left behind. So yeah, I think the load concept is something that is keep it light, keep it challenging, like find a challenging moment, but think you should be able to go, if you had to, you could squeeze out 5 to 10 more reps of that number. Okay, cool, move on. It's why I love Dan John's book, Can You Go? These simple books he wrote that are about fundamental strength and moving well in we'll say the life movements, if you will. And then from there, get into play.
Yeah. Yeah. Since we're kind of on the subject of Olympic lifting, and the podcast last week had some interesting comments. We were discussing kind of how powerlifting has kind of made its way into everyone's training program. But one of the things that I brought up was the fact that Olympic lifting is a very technical sport, very technical lift. And, while you could spend 6, 8, 10, 12 months teaching someone just to be proficient at those lifts, would that 6 to 12 months be better spent doing something that they can actually do and challenge their body with, rather than just trying to learn a new skill that essentially probably isn't that relevant to most sports? Yes, it builds power and explosiveness, but there are a lot of other things that you can learn a lot quicker and put into, apply a lot quicker. I mean, do you think people waste a lot of time on Olympic lifting if it's not their sport?
Yes, and I love Olympic weightlifting. But I think they do. I've got some pro athletes, some pro fighters that I've worked with over the years, and I developed their initial life and strength training. And we went, okay, I want you guys to be explosive. I want you to have power over time, not just one expression and you're done and you tire out. So I think you can, for the goal of training and explosive power, it's one of the things I think Marinovich trainers. There's a guy I've been working with, Alex Kim, who's got a system. It's Marinovich, but he's adapted and evolved in his umbrella, and he calls it Refit. What we talk about is there's so many ways to train that explosive, fast twitch, off the line power development. Guys who are, guys and girls who are like, no, I want to learn Olympic weightlifting. We'll work on a power clean. We might work on a power snatch. But only when they're like, no, I really want to learn this. Okay, cool. It's this much of what we're doing. And, I think for the generalist and for time's sake, kettlebell work is going to be more advantageous. Learning how to use a med ball really well, learning how to use your boxes, the standard plyometric S&C focused work, fantastic. I think we're at a time where, again, people want to put you under the umbrella of what they know and maybe go, okay, there's only so much time and only so much bandwidth. And if I have a fighter who's got no background in Olympic weightlifting, I'm not going to waste time trying to teach them how to clean, power clean, hang clean, snatch. Can I do it quick and easy? Sure. But I'd rather them learn a kettlebell efficiently, because then I can do a million different things with that. We're going to work a med ball in. We're going to change up. And it might be, hey, now we've dialed in your kettlebell swing. Sweet. We're working that in, but we're also going to alternate between a kettlebell swing and explosive push-ups, or explosive med ball slams, or some kind of broad jump. And it's going to be a mix of these different tools, not just one tool to make it happen. But I do believe that we're training a system in the body. And so I don't think that one tool is going to degrade their ability to do everything. I think at the end of the day, I want them to be explosive and express it fast. So whatever tool I choose to do that with, I'm then going to look at, okay, now how do we get them expressing that in a format that it relates into their sport? And then their coach is now going, hey, results. He's looking quick. He's looking sharp. He's sprawling well. He's driving off the line fast. Awesome. Our recipe's working. Let's keep going with what we're doing. But do I want to put them in an Olympic weightlifting umbrella? No. But for me, like, I do a lot of hang snatching, hang cleans, push pressing, push jerking. But I'm also doing explosive push-up formats. I'm doing med ball slam formats. I'm doing, Bosu ball, single leg, Marinovich focus, nervous system stability, explosive work there. Like I'm looking at the different avenues to achieve the goal, which is to keep my fast twitch alive. Because at 43, we know I'm currently swimming against the current. There'll come a time where I'm going backwards if I lay off at all. So, we want to be smart and calculated and know how to get it done and meet the individual where they're at when, we don't have the time to waste on learning a technical move because it is technical. And what I look at too is the technicality and the likelihood of injury are things we have to calculate. Yes, it's a responsibility as the coach to know how to get them to where we want them and not to go, well, I can't coach this, I'm not going to do it. But is there a better way? I think, yeah, kettlebells would be my go-to if I don't want to teach them all of that. And I think it opens up the door for way more stuff that we can do. And then again, use all the other tools.
Yeah. I think it's just getting that balance. People, they get into Olympic lifting and suddenly it's all they do, other than some accessories and 40 minutes of foam rolling before they even pick a barbell up. And it just, I think they forget not the jack of all trades thing as such, but they forget to integrate that power and that explosiveness, because the argument for the Olympic lifting was its general physical preparedness. It makes you explosive and strong. It's like, yeah, but you've got to then apply that into the movement you're actually going to be doing, unless you're on the platform doing your Olympic lifts.
We want them versatile.
People defend it, and it's not that I'm against it. It's just, as I said, what's most appropriate for the athlete in front of me.
Yeah.
And have we got time? If they want to learn it eventually, I've got no problem. Get a light bar, get them drilling, learning the technique under a light load. And then at some point, that's going to be good enough that you can start loading it up. But it is all about just that progression through the learning phase.
Yeah. And I think there is also something that I would say I've seen over the years where a lot of what people find me for is injuries, is chronic pain now. When I was a fireman, I was part of our wellness program and programming for firefighters, and I was very performance oriented. But what I see a lot of is that injuries come out later, not necessarily in those moments of training. But then we blame the sport, the activity, everything else, and we don't look back. And I see coaches where they are pushing numbers and they're only looking at, are they getting the workload done? Not what is their biomechanics look like? How's it coming out? What is all the other stuff they're going to do that day, that week, that month? And then there's a blowover. Now, do I think it's the patterns of those movements? Do I think external rotation and squatting is a bad thing? Not at all. But I think too much of any one thing, the patterns, and then not looking at everything else they're doing in life. And, this is where I always say foundation comes in, but is that we're undoing the patterns of life through a 5 to 10 minute foundation practice. And maybe that's part of the warm up, a part, but it's not just, it's corrective in nature, but it's not only corrective. It's turning up the nervous system. It's coordinating body movement, connection. It's isometrics. It's eccentrics. It's a lot of things. That's why I'm like, I can use that to make sure that we don't have to throw away fundamental things in our training, where I'm seeing a lot of like, everything is bad, adopt this one system. I don't agree with that either. So I'm always going to go back to, it's how well we are functioning as coaches, know how to use our tools, and have a kit that we're forever evolving, adapting, and growing. I'm forever in circles of high-level sports medicine doctors. I'm a fly on the wall learning all the time. And I bring those tools back to my coaching, back to my performance training, and then helping athletes come off of injury back into sport, or reduce the chronic aches and pains that they're experiencing in sport by evaluating how they're training, what needs to be adopted, and applying predominantly foundation and Katsu into their world.
Yeah, I think you've touched on a good point there about, the injury doesn't happen when you're picking up the shoe off the floor. It's something you've been doing, building up to that. It's a straw that broke the camel's back. And I think you see the younger trainers, I'm 42 as well. So again, for me, it's about being efficiency and not doing anything stupid. And we see the younger trainers, as you said, they've fallen into their box of, I'm a powerlifter or I'm a bodybuilder, and they train all their clients kind of in similar ways. And we all have our preferences and tendencies and go-tos when we're training clients. But again, I think you see the younger guys, coaches, and just people just training in general, and I don't think they realize the damage they're potentially doing, because they're trying to go heavier every session, every week, without kind of
Yeah.
any back off weeks or deloads, or they're just,
Hmm.
doing what they saw in Flex 20 years ago
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
copying it. And I think as you get in your 30s and 40s, those aches and pains do build up, and you don't realize that it's because you didn't take any rest days when you were 24. And,
Yeah.
I mean, do you think people need to learn a bit more to go a bit easier sometimes?
Yeah, I think, there has to be programmed rest days. It's a balance. It's a song and a dance, and that cliche idea is recognizing that there's only so much bandwidth for the individual, and the body's gonna let you know one way or the other. I think the mistakes we've all made them over the years. I started in my wellness journey when I was 18. Never in a million years I think I was going to become a coach, let alone a injury, chronic pain centric person. But that's how my life's evolved. And I look back at the mistakes I made and not recognizing rest days, not recognizing when I wasn't 100%, but the program said I needed to do these numbers today. And so I've got to follow my program. And I look back and it set me back. So many of my tweaks, injuries came from my body going, you know what? You're not giving me the break I need. I will get it in the way I know how to get it, which is now you're injured. Now you're burnt out. Now you're sick. Give me some time. So the desire to keep learning is what I'm going to say for every coach, and stay open-minded that maybe what you're doing can be better. Maybe we don't know everything, and maybe the umbrella I'm under is biased in and of itself. I see a lot of modalities right now going, everybody else is wrong. Everybody else is screwing up. Do it the way I'm doing it. And I think that is, again, the negativity out there to bastardize on everybody else to praise yourself. I was reading a book talking about marketing, and it's brilliant. It's dismiss the 80% and you'll net 20. And that 20 becomes diehard believing in what you're talking about. They're told not to look outside of it. Everybody else is wrong. So they don't evolve. They don't grow. They don't question. And then you develop a bias. And I'm seeing it so often. And I'm like, even the people who are doing it, I go, yeah, they're doing some good stuff over there. I like it all, but again, like to me, a lot of that is play. Like that stuff I would go to the park and do with bands and cables and maces, and I'm going to move, I'm going to play. Do I consider it training? No, it's me going to the park and having a movement session. My training is going to be very goal oriented, power, strength, endurance, agility, mobility. Like that to me is training. Going and making sure my body's not in aches and pains and injuries, like that's its own thing. And I think learning how to then bring it under an umbrella where you're a human moving and you know what your goals are and you're enhancing those goals. And then you're doing whatever other shit you like to do for training that brings you joy. Like that's what it should be. At the end of the day, I want people to move their body and feel well. And I don't care how they get there. Just, like do your best to stay open-minded and curious, not what was that show, Stay Curious, Not Judgmental. I know it's a famous quote, but there was a show that I was put onto it, and he's talking about that is be curious, not judgmental. And I feel like we're at a time where everything is judgmental first and not curious, because we're constantly in a social media world to defend my perspective, not be open-minded. So, you know, look to learn something new, look to explore what other people are doing. We used to want to sit down at a table and learn about what other people are doing because it might help us grow. Now we want to sit down at a table and tell everybody what we know. And it's a sad thing, I think. There's so many cool things
Yeah.
to learn, and we just shut ourselves down if we're not at least curious to understand.
Yeah, it's definitely what I want to see more of, is people collaborating and seeing what everyone's got to offer rather than just attacking everyone else. And it's got a bit ridiculous in the industry. I mean, I know they're defending their own systems that they believe in, and they've probably been attacked as well. So it's sometimes just a bit
Yeah.
of backlash. But yeah, instead of, just retaliating, just, put your point across. If you can argue why your system is good rather than why everyone else's is bad, that for
Hmm.
me, that gets a bit more respect. And then I'll listen. I might actually start listening to
Yeah.
what they're saying a bit more. And I think also
Yeah.
you hit the nail on the head there again with talking about play and, movement. When you're training, but outside of that, we should be moving our bodies, the way nature intended. I feel great. I go out in the mornings, try and get my morning sunlight and a bit of grounding, and I'll do, some some lymph flow stuff. I'll do
Yeah,
some rope flow. I'll get the Indian clubs out. I might go a bit heavier, get the club bells out or the mace.
beautiful.
And just move. And that makes me feel good. I feel better when I'm doing that rather than just if I'm in the gym lifting heavy. And, if you
Yeah,
want to lift heavy, great, but don't forget that movement stuff and the fact you want to enjoy it, do something you
yeah,
enjoy. You pick up a rope and start learning rope flow and it becomes addictive. You want to do it rather than have to do it. Whereas your training
yep,
plan that can be hard work is, oh, I've got to train today because this is today's workout sort of thing. And it becomes
yeah,
more of a chore. And I think people forget, just enjoy yourself, go and play.
yeah. Yeah, you can see, I mean, you can see it when you look, because even things like rope flow and all that, like that's new in America. Like certain people here have exposed it, but that's been going on in Asian countries for a while. And I look at so much of those cultures where America's a very new country, and I look at China, Japan, thousands of years they've been around. And they, to me, when I'm watching a lot of like the older, I look at the older and you see them in the parks, you see them doing movement, you see them doing interesting things, you see them playing, doing kung fu, doing qigong, but they're outdoors, they're in a community, they're moving, they're having fun, and then yeah, maybe they're going to the gym and training later. But I was just on the island of it was Shodoshima in Japan, and a gentleman I was with was swimming around the island, and I was on a stand-up paddleboard doing water support. So for 6 days, 3 to 4 hours, he's swimming. I'm on a stand-up. We have a small team. It's pretty amazing, but I'm looking around on this island. It's pretty remote, and the average age was probably 75 and up, and everybody's moving. Everyone's active. I didn't see a single gym. They're happy, they're having fun, they're doing community things. And that to me said a lot. I didn't see anybody jacked at 80, 90 years old. I saw a healthy, mobile, functioning people living a life that looked like a lot of fun. And so I look at them for, we'll say, guidance, if you will. And it makes me step back to assess what's the importance of everything I'm doing and where does it all fall in. And, I think the cardiovascular side is something I ignored for a very long time that I think is vital in our training. It enhances all of our training. But, you know, what you talked about, the morning sunlight, put your feet on the ground, get into some nature, move your body. And that's going to let you know, like, how am I feeling? How am I functioning today? Where am I at? How full is my glass? Okay, I feel amazing. Cool. I'm gonna have a nice time in the gym today. Or maybe, you know what? This was enough. I'm going to have a little bit easier. Maybe I'll try to do a meditation today, some yoga, some kind of zone one movement work, go for a walk. But like that time to check in with your body and be in nature, I mean, it's in the word human nature, nature. We need to have it to feel our best and to move our best. And when you bring nature back into the equation, all the training to me starts to make a whole lot more sense. Like climbing a tree, you know, I do it every so often. And when I do it, I'm always like, oh, wow, that was a little bit more challenging than I remember. Well, I don't do it all that often. I used to not think twice about it, but hanging from a branch, crawling around, go to a playground with your friends' kids and try to keep up with them. Like it'll let you know where you're at with just moving your body in the most simplistic ways.
Yeah. I think longevity wise, like you said, the kind of average age 70, 75. I think, again, you said there's not a gym. They're not training. It's just their lifestyle. And I think that's another thing people get wrong. They think that 3-4 hours a week in the gym is going to counter the sitting, the being indoors, the not moving, when it's that lifestyle. If you're constantly active and that is your life, in theory, you wouldn't even need to train. If we were still out working the tools or working on a farm, you probably wouldn't need training as we know it.
No.
With people that want to train just for general health and fitness or a bit of weight loss just to stay healthy and longevity, again, they kind of fall into that trap of going to the gym, and then the gym is machines and bodybuilding and powerlifting. So I said by accident, they fall into a sport of bodybuilding or powerlifting when all they want is just to feel better, and all they need really is just to move more and do something that makes them feel good. If you want to do Zumba, but just move your body in a way that you enjoy.
Yeah, and to your point, the moving more, moving often is a statement I give a lot of people. It's actually, I've been working on a book Don't know when I'm actually be done because I keep revising, but one of the sections is move more, move often. And I think, modern society is why foundation training was created. It is a modern solution to the lifestyle we're living. And that's why I look at it as that if I'm doing that consistently, for me, that's wake up, get on the floor, go through 5 to 10 minutes, check in, zip my body up, align so that things are balancing, femur heads in the pelvis. I'm expanding above, I'm externally rotating, my body is open and expansive, the muscles are stabilizing and supporting the system. That's my way to go, cool. I'm balancing my body out against the modern world, collapsing me inward towards center, pelvis curling under me, shoulders rounding, head tracking forward. And so if I'm doing those things, it keeps a balance. It's very enjoyable for me. It's like I say for some, they look at it like a yoga. Some look at it like, for me, it's like a martial arts kata. I wake up and I go through my motions of my my passion, if you will, but I go through those things to make sure my body's not being allowed to passively adapt to the environment. And, Oahu, I walk down to the beach, check the waves, do a little bit more foundation down there, feet in the sand, jump in the ocean. But when we don't have those luxuries, that's where I look at is the 5 to 10 minutes of foundation in the morning, splicing it through the day. If you're sitting at a desk, I've been working with quite a few people virtually where they're at a desk all day and I'm helping them map that. We have an office program. I say, do micro snacks from the office program. It's meant to counter the side effects of all the sitting. And then we don't have to throw away the way we're training. We don't suddenly have to adapt some program that's designed on these exact concepts to realign posture, position, how we're walking, how we're moving through the day. Like that's, Dr. Goodman's theory that he started basically creating around his chronic pain injuries, which was from modern world, and a spine that is really, really bad that they wanted to operate on. And he's to this day able to manage his symptoms and live a very active, healthy, functioning lifestyle. So I look at it like recognizing that balance. And when I was in Japan, we met some olive farmers. I met a young guy, he's 25 years old. He was in college, pandemic hit, was going for business, realized like I can impact the world in a different way. And he got into olive farming, studied agriculture. Now he works on an olive farm and we hung out, we met all these different guys and he spoke great English. He went to school in Canada, but talking with him, and I said to my friends, I'm like, what a blessing. He's out here every day now. They hand harvest to protect the olives. He's with friends all day. He's in nature all day. He's probably going to outlive all of us and he's going to feel well in the process. And he's very fulfilled by what he's doing. I look at a guy like him and I'm like, if he's sitting a lot afterwards, he's playing on his phone, he might need foundation training, but most likely not. He's outdoors moving his body in very active ways. And so to me, that is, there's no heavy lifting and maybe a little bit picking up. I don't know how big the bushels of olives can be, but he's moving his body consistently every day, all day. That is why the gym exists, is to make up for the fact that we aren't in nature like we once were. But if we save it for 1 hour a day and we sit the rest of it, we're getting it wrong.
Yeah. I think that can be a problem as well because, obviously if we're not constantly moving, keeping it at that low level, we do have to kind of cram it into a more intense, if you want to call it an hour in the gym. But the problem is if you're sitting or inactive kind of all the rest of the time, you're finding yourself in those postures and the positions you're not supposed to be in. And then when you go into the gym in that state, it compounds the problem. So the gym's not actually countering the sitting, it's kind of compounding the problem. And that's where I think foundation training or anything that's going to kind of rebalance you, get everything where it should be before you start your heavy lifting, I think that's where the power of it really kind of comes in.
Absolutely. It's posterior chain dominant, as some people like to say, back chain dominant. It's the posterior chain, the back side of your body. I'll give you a good story. I was this morning before we jumped on, I ran into a guy who owns a big fight studio, fight gym over here, probably a little bit younger than me, very, very athletic, in great shape. He's like, Jess, I had all these therapists working on me and his traps are huge. And he's telling me, he's having essentially brachial nerve plexus symptoms. And when therapists work on him, now he's got headaches for hours because they're grinding in, attacking it. Another coach like, well, you just need to stretch it out more. You need to open up. And I said, respectfully, it's not stretching. And then he's telling me he just got back into surfing and it really hurts because he's paddling. Guess what happens? I work with professional surfers. We all cinch up here from paddling. We become trap dominant over lat dominant, right? That rounded posture. He's working on his phone. He's working on his computer. He told me when he's getting fatigued and he pushes, he feels his traps are pumping from a sled push. That should never be the case with a sled push. I shouldn't feel my traps taking over, right? So I said to him, like, hey, real quick. And I went to put him into a foundation position with a hip hugger immediately. So we went to externally rotate his arm, his shoulder in the shoulder socket, and isometric contract it in what we call a hip hugger, instantly cramping in his lat around his scap. And I went, okay, it's already telling us. I'm like, it's not that because he's like, I know I'm all effed up. And I was like, it's not you're effed up. Your body is stuck in a pattern. That pattern is you wear your shoulders internally rotated, you collapse down on them. We need to retrain the pattern. What I'm doing right now, just that cramping right away told me that's in my world of doing this with people, cramping, shaking, those are signs like, cool, we're on the right path. These are muscles that are not being allowed to work. They're short, they're tight. I'm asking them to lengthen and engage, and they immediately start talking to us. Goes away relatively quickly, but that's immediately telling me the story. And so for him, I just went, you don't need a million therapists grinding you out. You don't need to stretch. We need to start doing fundamental FT, get you back to your lats dominating, not your traps, by bringing you back into a healthy degree of external rotation with your shoulders not being in this rounded position. And, for anybody listening, like these are patterns that typically come out with that wearing of the shoulders. We get a lot of the shoulder pains, the anterior shoulder, the top of the shoulder, the front, whatever, or the shoulder joint itself speaks to us a lot because now with it rounded forward, we're out of alignment first off to leverage the lats to stabilize the shoulder and be a big supporting mover. The lats are the backside of your body. And when they're allowed to dominate and support that shoulder in its position, the anterior serratus can now work. The scaps are allowed to glide and move because we're doing decompression breathing. Your rib cage is moving and we're not crowding and compressing nerve bundles coming off the spine by being in this lockdown position. Again, he's in a fight world. In fighting, we guard our chin. We wear our shoulders up. We put our gloves up. We have our chin tucked. When we're grappling, we're in that same position. We're staying tight and compressed. We need to undo those patterns. If I follow this philosophy that throw away all other training and adopt this new system, that would mean they got to stop grappling. They got to stop fighting. No, we're going to use FT. We're going to align posture position. We're going to retrain the pattern so that when you go into the sport, things are balancing, they're dispersing. You're not leveraging into your traps. Your lats are dominating. And now you have bigger muscles working. When you push a sled, it's not your traps taking over. And then when you're done training, we're going to do a bit of FT. And then if it's real bad, I'm going to tell them, hey, I want you to do a couple rounds before bed. Yeah, what's the best way to sleep? I'm like, don't worry about your sleeping just yet. Do 5 to 10 minutes of FT before bed. It sounds like a lot, but it's 5 to 10 minutes. Like that's not that much when you're saying, get me out of pain. Someone that's not in pain, once a day, a little bit warm up and then do the rest of your warm up that you would normally want to do. Some people like, I don't need to do anything else once I've done that. But it's recognizing that these are patterns from lifestyle, from activity, from hobby. Pro surfer, she's potentially going to win this year in the WSL. We were doing a lot of work going into the season, and she would tell me when I'm surfing, after a while, I'll feel my traps just burning. Like we did 2 days of our FT training in and around surfing. Then I get a text. My lats were on fire today. They are so tired. I didn't feel my traps at all. No headaches. I'm like, great. I didn't change the way she surfed. I didn't do anything about the way she paddled. We just started to retrain that her body is being allowed to leverage the right muscles. And we didn't have to change all of her training. She has a standard S&C coach that she works with. We didn't change anything about what they did. We just enhanced it.
Yeah, I think people get stuck in their patterns, don't they? It's not a case that you kind of need to do anything crazy or replace your training. It's just you need to have those natural movements and positions kind of nailed down to then get the most benefit from your training. So it doesn't detract from it. Spending a bit of time getting things set up how they should be will actually benefit whatever training you then choose to go on and do. In terms of pain, I mean, what would you say is the biggest, most people outside of kind of external impacts and injuries? Like what do you think's damaging people the most?
What I see often in the global brush, and this is why I say foundation training is the grenade. I'll roll it into a room. I'm going to get 90% of people with that grenade out of pain. But there's a place where there's that 10%. We need a sniper rifle. They're going to go work with a therapist. Therapist is going to send them back to me. What I typically end up doing is basic foundation training. And that is allowing their body to become expansive, to become stabilized from below the pelvis, and open and expansive from above the pelvis to make space in the body. So I would say the chronic pain patterns, and I actually was speaking with a doctor this morning about how would you explain foundation helps the shoulder? I said it's the same way it helps the knee, the same way it helps the back. The chronic pain contributor that I see is the collapse in the sitting. Now, there is the counter. There's the people who are hyperextending all the time, walking with their, I like to say the beach butt models where they're tucking their butts out behind them, they're arching their backs 24/7. I would say it's one or the other, predominantly this collapse. Going back, this is Dr. Goodman's fundamental explanations in his books, but it's that idea that the body is converging inward or converging into compression one way or the other. Doing basic foundation is where retraining, expansion, a re-education of your axial skeleton towards expansion. We're bringing back a balanced body where the muscles are allowed to absorb and disperse force so that the joints and the nerves aren't under compression because we're here all the time. We have a pelvis tucking, we have knees leading, we have the inside of our feet leading when we walk, we have shoulders rounding, we're smelling our way through life, we're collapsing on and shortening the gap between our rib cage and our pelvis. Now imagine your lungs are in there trying to fully expand, but you're constricting the rib cage from being allowed to do that. The lungs are in the ribs, not the belly. So the minute we do that and the mouth starts to open up, it has this compounding effect on the body where these simple daily practices that shift the way we breathe, shift the way we move, shift the way the muscles stabilize and support the structure, has a way of relieving a large part of these symptoms. And then I still go back to, I have a team that I'm always working with. And, sometimes I go see the acupuncturist. Sometimes I see the massage therapist. Sometimes I go to my chiro. Not because I have to, but because I look at it as like, I'm not going to give my vehicle more maintenance than I give my body. I love all of them for different reasons. Sometimes it's simply calming the nervous system down. Sometimes the massage is just, hey, it's good and healthy to have human touch and contact and this a moment of being allowed to let go and give the control to somebody else. Those are all impacting the nervous system, the brain, the body, and sending a message of like, hey, let go of control for a little bit, relax, you're healthy, you're strong, the body can align and balance. So I think there's people out there priding and they'll go like, you only need to do what I'm telling you to do. You don't need to do anything else. You don't need all these other people. Like, no, Dr. Brown, who's a head lead sports med doctor out here in Newport Beach, has always said it takes a village. And that village is bringing all these people together, not letting your ego go, you only need me. It's like, no, hey, sometimes this is the right person. Sometimes the person doing Eldoa method, it's just another spinal wellness program, the DNS system. These are corrective exercise programs. These aren't sports-centric programs telling you they're for chronic pain. These are systems that have been around for decades, adapted for chronic pain relief to enhance the training, to then carry into the strength and conditioning, to then carry over to the sport specific. So that's kind of how I look at all of these, knowing when, where, check my ego. Sometimes it's not me. It's just I'm not the right fit for the individual, but I'm going to find them the right individual because the goal isn't to feed my ego, is to get that person better, feeling well, stoked on life, and spreading the message of, hey, Jesse wasn't the guy, but what he's doing was awesome. It might help you. And I have that all the time. Like by sharing who I learned from or what I'm studying, or, hey, I took this from this person, I find it builds credibility where I think sometimes we fall in a trap of being afraid to point people to others that it might make us look inept. I find it's the exact opposite. And I believe in lift up all those around you and know when it's time to go, hey, I've taken you as far as I can get you. I'll go try this person out, go check this out, go do that. Yeah, it's it's a beautiful thing when you get to play well with others.
Yeah. I think it's honest and it builds trust rather than trying to pretend you know everything. If you wanted someone to take kind of one message from this episode, what would it be? What would you tell people?
Move your body, keep it simple, consistency, simplicity over intensity and theatrical. Find what works for you, find what makes you feel well, and get out there and enjoy. Be in nature more. That's my big one is be in nature, move your body, get some sunshine, put your feet on the earth, put the phone down, share a smile, talk to a stranger. Like life is so much better when we invite others in and we don't just clamp down. And, staying curious to learn. That's a lot of things, but it's all stuff that I would tell, any young person I'm mentoring is, we don't know shit. And when you think about it that way, you're going to forever be curious to learn from other people instead of trying to tell everyone this is how to do everything.
Perfect. Okay, so where can people find you? Where can they follow you?
Social media, it's Coach, capital J, then SALAS. If you're wanting to reach out to me, coachjessiesalas.com. But I'm pretty active on social media. I do a lot in the foundation training platform. We got tons of programs there. I coach a lot of those. So I tell people that's the cheapest, easiest way to work with me if you are inspired to do that. But yeah, Instagram, I try to be active and answer questions where I can because, it's a nice way to interact with the world.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mark, thanks for having me, brother.
Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed this episode and want help putting all of this into practice, come and join me in my school community at www.movebetter.club. You'll find short, effective workouts, simple nutrition advice, and lifestyle strategies that you can use to build healthy habits into your day-to-day life. It's designed to help you move better, feel better, perform better, and stay strong and capable for life. We've also got the community and myself for support and guidance, and if you're not ready to join yet, you can join the free community and the 7-day challenge. Again, go to www.movebetter.club. And if you enjoyed the episode, please do follow or subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might get benefit from it.